Thank you. Attorney Brown.
Good afternoon. Please state and spell your name for the jury.
It's Brent Baverstock, Brent Baverstock.
What do you do for a living, sir?
I'm a detective with the Dane County Sheriff's Office.
In your role as a detective with the Dane County Sheriff's Office, were you asked to follow up in the investigation of two missing people, Bart Halderson and Krista Haldersons, in the early part of July of 2021?
Yes.
Initially, what was your role in the investigation?
I was not initially a part of the first response to it. However, maybe shortly before noon on July 8th, Detective Liz Allen came to my office. She said she had just had a phone call with the mother of Catherine Melander, who was the girlfriend of Chandler Halderson. And during that phone call, she intended to do initially just a phone interview, just kind of get some background information, but some things on that phone call alerted her to believe that we needed to follow up with a in-person interview. So she came to my office and asked me to sit in on that interview, because we try to interview people, with at least two detectives there to support each other.
Sure. And was that with Dulce?
That was with Dulce, correct.
And just briefly, if you could describe Dulce's kind of emotional state during some of that interview.
Well, we got to the location where we agreed to interview her, which is she was in the middle of some classes, just trying to improve her education. And we sat in a side little conference room, and she was emotionally distraught. She kind of had this look of fear and panic in her eyes. Okay.
Now, they've testified, so we're not going to talk much about that interview. But at some point, do you end up going to a farm that you thought might have been visited by Chandler Halderson over the 4th of July weekend and leading into the next week?
Yeah, based upon our interviews with them, we determined we needed to get out to that farm right away and search it.
Sure. I think it's been described as being near Cottage Grove, but kind of in a rural area of Dane County. That sound fair to you?
Yes.
The entire location of that farm, is that here in Dane County, Wisconsin?
Yes, it is.
And it fairly remote?
Yeah.
Had you ever been there before?
No.
If you could describe the farm just in general to us.
Sure. Well, it's probably 30 to 40 acres. A lot of it is wooded. The house sits in a wooded area. There's a paved driveway that goes up from the road that kind of turns off to where the house is. And then if you kept going straight on that, it would turn into a gravel, and then up into the grassy area would be where like the back shed was, and the pool and the raspberries.
Did you personally yourself walk out there with Cress or Dulce or anybody?
Yes, I did.
Who was with you?
Well, I had first gone there, responded out there pretty quickly. There were a lot of red flags that popped up during my interview with Crescent, and I called to the command post to Detective Sims, and I talked to her, and I'm like, I need some more people. We need to get out here. We need to search this place right away. But we were pretty stretched thin at that point. We had sent a team up to, a team was headed up to the cabin to do some more investigation up there. I'm like, we need some more people. We need to get out there and search it. So she was able to provide at least another detective, Detective Tim Blank, along with me and Detective Liz Allen. And then while I was on the way, I contacted Barry Ehrman from the Dane County Medical Examiner's Office and asked him to respond with his cadaver dog to help us do the search.
Sure.
I got there and nobody was there. I had expected Cress and Dulce to beat me there. I went to the house, knocked on the door, and nobody answered. And I got worried that they maybe went up and started searching on their own. So I went up there. I went up into the grassy area. Like you can see, you have a photo of the farm there. So I could see whether or not anybody was back by there. And, I noticed, during my contact with Cress, she did talk that she had recently seen vultures circling over the property.
Your Honor, I'm going to object as hearsay.
Sure.
Sustained.
Did you yourself at some point see some birds over the woods?
Yes.
And what were those birds?
Turkey vultures.
And did that raise red flags to you?
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Most birds really don't have a sense of smell except for turkey vultures. Turkey vultures actually when a body or an animal or creature dies, it starts going through some changes. The microorganisms on there start producing different gases, and it emanates an odor. Turkey vultures can smell that, and when they do, they'll start circling the area to locate where it's coming from.
And were those turkey vultures over the wooded area at the farm?
When I got there, yeah.
Okay. Did you find Cress and Dulce as you walked back there?
Eventually, I walked up there, I didn't see them, and then Cress came out of the back sliding patio door and met me. And then I asked her if she could show me again where she had seen Chandler back by the woods. And we walked back up to the area of the shed, and she showed me.
When you say she showed you, did she point physically?
Yeah, she did.
All right. And so what I'm going to have you do, and because she's already testified, you can't say what she said, but you saw her point at a location?
Yes.
Can you please stand up for 1 second and point on that map to the location that Cress pointed out to you as where she saw Chandler?
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, I asked her to tell me exactly where she had seen the vehicle parked. We walked up and came over this area. She said the vehicle was parked in this area. And then she said that when she first saw Chandler coming out of...
Your Honor, objection, hearsay again.
I'm sorry, I missed the part of the objection.
It was hearsay.
Hearsay again about what someone told him.
Sustained.
And maybe I'll ask a better question. When she physically herself pointed at a location where she saw Chandler coming out of the woods, where was that location?
Well, we were standing right about here.
Okay.
She pointed back towards this direction.
Okay, physically put her hand up and pointed?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You can take a seat.
Do you want to describe that for the record, counsel?
I will. I would say that the witness just pointed toward the wood line, approximately a foot below that barn, where the barn is. Counsel's nodding in agreement, so I think that's fair to say. At that point, what did you do?
Well, my partners hadn't arrived yet, so I asked for Cress to go back and wait in the house, and I told her that my partners would be here soon and we'd start doing our search. We returned back to the driveway, and Detective Blank and Detective Allen had arrived shortly thereafter, and then we went back up to that area and we started looking around.
So I'm going to ask you what you saw first. When you got down to that area, all these, I'll pause for a second. I apologize for maybe being sporadic there. All of these vehicles in the photograph, those are related to law enforcement and the investigation, correct?
Correct.
There were not a bunch of vehicles parked out there when you were there?
No.
And were there any vehicles parked out there other than law enforcement vehicles?
There's one vehicle parked inside the shed, but not visible, I think, from that photograph.
Understood. As you got over toward, let's say, that junk pile before the grass gets longer there, did you see any signs that a car had been over there?
Yes.
What did you see?
Well, Detective Blank pointed it out first. He pointed over and he said, well, it looks like cars driven through the tall grass over here. I'm like, yeah, it does. So we went over there and we saw there were 2 tracks of the taller grass. The grass is probably about, waist high. You can see the 2 track marks that go back along the parallel with the wood line there.
Okay. And at that point or shortly thereafter, you and other detectives began maybe searching a little bit closer into where those tire tracks went?
Yeah, we began to follow them. They went back probably about to an area where there were some white wooden boxes that are old beehives. They're just kind of stored along the tree line.
And that's before you entered the woods, correct?
That's before I entered the woods.
Okay, so we're going to pause there, and I'm going to have you look at a couple of exhibits first, so we're all on the same page. Exhibits 75 through 81. Just page through those and give me just, in general, what am I looking at there?
Okay. 75 is the driveway entrance for the residence to the farm.
Okay. You can keep going.
Okay. 76 is just going up further along the driveway. You can see it starts to split at the end there. This little angle to the right here goes towards the house, and the one that continues straight on is the one that continues to where it becomes gravel and goes up towards the field. Here's where if you were to take that little fork in the driveway and go right, you would see the house. That's number 77. Number 78 is the back side of the house, but if you drive in to the driveway, so the garage would be on the right side of this picture. So this would be facing back towards like the pool area.
Sure.
That's number 78. 79 is the gravel driveway where the paved portion turns into gravel and then continues up towards the pool.
Okay.
That's 79.
80?
80 is after the gravel driveway ends, and we're now heading to just the grassy area to where you see the raspberry garden here and then the pool.
Okay.
And then 81, this is the area in which Crescent had pointed out to me that the vehicle had parked, and she actually noted out that these tire marks here in the grass.
Your Honor, I'm going to object again as hearsay.
Sustained.
But is 81 that area that was pointed out?
Correct.
All right, I'll take those exhibits. I'll move to publish 75 through 81.
I think they haven't been moved into evidence yet.
I'll move them into evidence.
Any
No
objections? They are received. You may publish.
And if you could put the HDMI 2 on, I'm going to display these off my computer so there's no glare. Exhibit number 75, we're looking at the driveway coming from the street up to the house. Is that correct?
That is correct.
We'll just page through these. 76, that's that driveway going up right before the split.
Correct.
77, coming up toward the house.
Yep, that's the split to the right, looking at the house.
78, a view of the house.
Correct.
That's the lawnmower we might have heard about, people driving around.
Yes.
And if we're looking at this house, beyond it is the pool and the shed and that grassy area, correct?
If you were standing at that patio door and looking away from the house would be the pool.
Okay. 79, the gravel driveway as it goes up towards the pool in that area.
Correct.
80, now we're up kind of in that grassy area.
Yep, that's where the gravel ends, and it's just the open area.
And 81, I think you described this as generally kind of the start of the area that was pointed out to you.
Yeah, it's the mowed area just to the south of the big shed.
Sure. I'm going to do this a little bit differently now. I'm going to show you what's been marked in this case as exhibits number 82 through 107. Just by yourself, page through those, and the question at the end is going to be, are these photographs of essentially that area leading up to what you found and the items that you found in the woods? I'm going to ask you, and then we're going to look at them all together, okay?
Sounds good.
So you can just look through those and let me know if that's what we're looking at.
Is that 82 to 107, Counsel?
Correct.
Thank you.
Question, are those photographs of leading out to the area that was pointed out to you and then ultimately your search into the woods and maybe what you found?
Yes, they are.
Appear true and accurate to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, they are.
I would move 82 through 107.
No objection.
They are received.
All right, we're going to do this together. We're going to walk through them. So you see,
And Detective, you can see the same exhibit on the computer monitor if you wish to.
Okay.
And that might help pick up the microphone better as we go through this.
so we'll start with 82. What are we looking at there, and what did you personally observe when you were out there?
So there's the mowed section of the grass, which is just south of the barn. There's a stack of old logs sitting there, but to the right is where we could see what appeared to be two tire marks going into the deeper grass.
Did you follow those tire marks?
Yes, I did.
83 of just a different view of those tire marks.
Yep.
84, what are we looking at there?
Just a continuation of the tire marks, where the tire marks end. There was another area of depressed grass, which would have been, if you're looking at the two tire marks, where they stop, there's another area of depressed grass in all different directions at the end of it, sitting right there.
Okay. We'll go to 85. This is maybe looking more into the woods at this point?
Yeah, so if you're standing near where all that grass was patted down at the end of the tire marks in the grass, you look over and you can see more of the grass is like pressed down, heading towards the woods.
And was that, we're seeing it on a photograph, but I'll ask you, because you were out there, was it apparent to you that this was an area that had been walked through or trampled in some way by someone or something?
Yes.
And did you follow it?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and so you entered the woods right there?
Correct.
All right, we're gonna pause 1 second. On this big blow up, if you could just stand up for 1 second and point to the jury on exhibit number 57, where you cut into the woods.
We get into the mowed section here, two tire marks follow along the grass, and you can see like these white boxes, those are the old beehives. And then right after that, we're cuts into the woods.
All right, for the record, the witness ran his hands essentially down the wood line from the junk pile to the beehives and then drug them into the woods. Okay.
No objection.
Very good.
'86 photograph of that trampled area. '87, what are we looking at there?
So, picture doesn't show it as much, but there's, again, you can see the vegetation in the ground there, but it was very directional as far as this area. To see like this log, the vegetation had been trampled down. So it's hard to tell from this picture, but there's actually a downward slope here. You know, if the trees weren't here, it'd be a good little sledding hill for little kids, but there's like a downward slope that goes down into, you can see like a little brush pile down there.
Okay. 88, what are we looking at there?
More of the trampled grass that goes to this log that goes across. And then you can see they get the green moss on the log, but there's areas where the green moss had been scraped off as if something had scraped it off.
Did you notice anything ultimately beyond that log at this point?
Yeah, the pile of sticks on the other side of the log, and there was just something that wasn't natural under the sticks.
Did you go check it out?
Yeah, I got as close as I had to.
89, the photo just moving a little bit closer.
Yep, yeah, again, you see the scrapes on the log there, just under the moss, and then you can see the pile of sticks there, and there's something underneath it. Couldn't quite tell what it was right away, so I stepped over the log and got a little bit of a closer look.
And what did you find?
I didn't know what it was at first.
What do you mean by that?
It took me a while to process what I was seeing, you know. Then it became obvious that I was looking at a human torso.
Okay. So we're going to move in a little bit closer to photograph 90. And again, we're starting to maybe be able to see that, what you saw that day?
Yes.
Under those sticks. Okay. Going to 91, a different view of kind of looking through those sticks.
Yeah, and this is about the view that I had. You could see the flesh-colored skin on the right, and the belt and pants, and a black rope attached to it. And you can see the rope coming out from the bottom of the stick pile.
Okay, we're going to go to the next photo, which is 92. Just a close-up of under those sticks.
Yes.
At this point, counsel, I will caution and remind the jurors that obviously at some point these photographs will become more explicit as necessary for the state's case in chief. And I just remind you to observe them for whatever length of time you believe is necessary as a juror to do your job. If anyone needs a pause, we'll be happy to do that. And I know Attorney Brown or other counsel, if they're using any of these photos, will alert you every time the photo is going to change so that if you have diverted your gaze, you'll know to look back to see the next photo. Please continue. Thank you.
Okay. We'll go to the next photo, 93. What are we looking at there?
That's the rope that was attached to the body.
Is the
We'll go to the
rope in the
next.
upper right-hand corner?
No, it's all throughout the picture there. I don't know if you can see it from your
Oh,
angle,
okay.
but
Thank you.
it's all throughout the picture there.
Thank you.
We'll
Kind
go
of
to the
coiled
next
up like a snake.
photo, which is 94. Now, we're briefly going to turn away, but what is that?
That's a garbage can.
And where was that in relation to the torso?
So in relation to, so this is back up closer to the top of the hill. Off to the right, out of picture, would be where the beehive boxes were.
Okay. And that tarp was out there around the time you found the torso? Or that garbage can?
The garbage can was there. The tarp was inside of it.
Excuse me. And then, is this a close-up, exhibit number 95?
Yes.
Okay. Now, moving back, obviously, number 96, we're back to looking at that pile of sticks, correct?
Correct. We're looking at the human torso underneath the pile of sticks.
Was it a considerable pile of debris on top of the torso? If you could describe it any way you could.
You know, it wasn't natural to, it looked like it had been accumulated and placed on top. There wasn't another pile of sticks nearby. Similarly, it was mostly a collection of dead wood that was placed on top.
Okay. The next photo is number 97. Just looking at it from a different angle.
Yeah, and there you can see the belt with the rope tied around the waist.
Okay. So the rope was both off to the side, and you saw it around the waist.
Correct.
Okay. Number 98. What am I looking at there?
You're looking at the torso with, I believe that's going to be the most obvious sign would be like the right shoulder with the arm severed off, the head missing.
Okay. We'll go to the next photo, which is 99. What are we looking at there?
At the upper shoulders of the back of the torso.
I'm going to go to the next photo, which is 100. What are we looking at there?
You can see the back of the torso. Again, you see the belt and the pants, the rope tied around the waist. You see the back hair is pretty visible.
Okay. Now, I know we're looking at these all at once, but I think you mentioned earlier on the way out to the property, knowing what you had heard, you'd already called Barry Ehrman, who's the director of the medical examiner's office. At some point, other people arrived during this search, right, from the medical examiner's office and things of that sort?
Yes.
Okay. And while we're looking at them all in one group, there was a removal of the debris at some points over the torso, kind of supervised by everyone who was out there, making sure it was done correctly.
Correct.
Okay. So the next photo, we're going to start to see what that looked like maybe after some of the debris was removed, okay? We're going to go to photograph 101. And just describe that if you could for the record.
Again, it's the torso we found, however, all the branches have been removed from the top of it.
Okay. Was that the position it was in after all the branches were removed?
Yes.
Okay. And I think you testified previously that the limbs were severed and the head. A couple different views of that exist in terms of photographs. So we're going to go to exhibit number 102. And is that a different view?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, anatomically, standing, how the body is it facing down? If the head were still present, would it be facing down? Are we looking at that person's back?
Yes, the chest would be toward the ground at this point. Back is facing upward.
Okay. We're going to go to the next photograph, which is 103. And what is that?
That is a defect in the back, which would indicate, at least from the number of times that I've seen it personally, that there was a wound there.
Okay. Consistent with a bullet wound?
Yeah, and I'm going to object at this point as to foundation and expertise.
I'll sustain. I think the description of a defect is appropriate based upon what we have as a foundation.
Sure. We'll hear from the medical examiners later, Detective, but I'm going to go back one photograph to 102. Is that defect present in that photograph as well?
Yes, it is.
And if you could just physically, again, you know how it works with court, we're taking a record. Could you describe physically on the torso where that defect is on that person?
In the center of the back, probably, 8 inches above the belt line,
Okay. So I'm gonna
6 to 8 inches.
Understood. We'll go back to 103, which we've already looked at. And we're going to look at the next photograph, which is 104. What are we looking at there?
We're looking at what would be the buttocks of the torso, the belt, and the pants, which appeared to have been cut at the top left of the screen, as well as some red staining along the pants, and the rope again tied around the waist.
And I'll go to number 105. Here we see someone manipulating that clothing. Someone involved in the investigation, obviously.
Yes.
Okay. What are we looking at there?
We're looking at the upper portion of the pants where the what would be just underneath the back of the belt to where the pants meet, that the fabric had began to tear.
Obviously, the torso needed to be removed from the area it was in and taken somewhere else.
Yes.
Okay. That was done by the medical examiner.
Correct.
Doctors came out and helped with that.
Yes.
In the process of doing that, part of what happens is the torso is moved from maybe where it is onto a bag or a sheet or something of that sort, right, for transport?
It would be placed into a sealed. In my experience, every time we've done it, it's always placed into what would be called a body bag.
Sure.
Sometimes different size bags are used, but yeah, it would be to preserve anything that was on it and to transport it.
Okay. And that was done in this case?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to show the next exhibit, 106. Is that the beginnings of that process of rolling the torso over and maybe onto a more sterile surface?
Yes.
Okay. And now we're looking at the front of that torso.
Correct.
All right. And I'm going to go to the last exhibit, 107. After the torso was rolled over, something was found underneath it. A black item, correct?
Yeah, you could see it even when it was sticking out from underneath it. It was a black T-shirt. You can see the many maggots that were crawling around the shirt and around the wounds on the torso.
Okay. Judge, can we shut this off? Thank you. A couple of questions about that. You said that there were some maggots and things of that sort. Were insects and the natural processes beginning to become a problem for that torso in your observation?
Become a problem for the torso?
In terms of the deterioration of the torso, were there insects and things of that sort around?
Well, typically we'll call in a forensic entomologist, but it's part of the decomposition process when any animal or any living tissue is exposed to the elements. Flies will come, they'll lay their eggs. Within a certain amount of time, those eggs will hatch into maggots, and the maggots will feed and begin to consume and continue on with the process of breaking down the body.
Okay. We're coming to an end, but fair to say that Well, you may have been the first one to come upon this. A lot of people ultimately descended on this farm and got involved in the investigation at that point.
Yes.
Okay. And in fact, we're probably going to hear from you again in this case, aren't we?
Probably, I would think so.
Okay. I have no further questions for now for the detective.
Cross-examination.
Nothing for now, thank you.
May the witness be excused but not released.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Detective.
So Detective Sims, I assume your name is still spelled the same as yesterday?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so we won't go through that again. In the course of this investigation, were various warrants and subpoenas written?
Yes, they were.
And what is the purpose of a warrant or a subpoena?
Depending on the type, we're looking for records from companies or businesses. For example, cell phone companies, medical records, things of that sort.
Okay. Basically telling them they have to turn over whatever you wrote the subpoena for.
That's correct.
Okay. And were such records written to local healthcare and hospitals in the area?
Yes,
Okay. Specifically for the defendant's records?
that's correct.
Okay. I'm going to show you what has been marked as Exhibit 494. What is Exhibit 494?
It is a subpoena and return for the UW Health records of Chandler Halderson.
And does that appear to be a true and accurate copy of that subpoena?
Yes, it does.
At this time, I would move Exhibit 494 into evidence.
Any objection?
None.
It is received.
And of course, a lot of it is just legal mumbo jumbo, but I have noted with a pink tab there, a paragraph. It's on page 1347 of Discovery for Counsel. Would you just read to the jury this paragraph, what specifically UW Health was court-ordered to provide your office with?
Sure. Certified copies of medical records pertaining to Chandler M. Halderson, male white, date of birth 3/15/1998. More specifically, a complete copy of the official medical records to include outpatient notes, all discharge summaries, all pathology reports, and all clinic summaries, X-ray, EKG, and lab reports collected and created by UW Health pertaining to the Halderson's examination on or around June 17th, 2021, and any follow-up treatment as a result of a head injury.
All right. So you asked for the records for that day that he went into the ER, but also for any follow-up appointments.
That's correct.
Did you receive records from UW Health for the day he was seen at the ER?
Yes, we did.
Did you receive any records for any follow-up appointments?
We did not.
Okay. But they were court-ordered to provide them had any follow-up appointments occurred?
That's correct.
I'm now going to show you what has been marked as Exhibits 492 and 493. What are those two exhibits? What is 492 first?
492 is a document from UW Health, including a certification of medical records from CIOX Health, and it is the health records from UW in regards to patient Chandler M. Halderson for treatment he received on June 17th, 2021.
And does that appear to be a true and accurate copy of what you received from UW Health in response to your court order?
Yes, it does.
And what is document 493?
493 is a CIOX Health certification of medical records for Chandler Halderson, certifying the records that we received. CIOX Health is a records management company that manages the records for UW.
So they are the ones who receive the subpoenas and they output or answer the subpoenas and send you the court-ordered records.
That's correct.
At this time, I would move exhibits 493 and 492 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection.
They are received.
And I'm of course not going to put these on the overhead because they're very small print, but I am going to ask on page 1207 or page 10 of the medical records, I'm going to ask that you just read this paragraph for the jury.
And which exhibit number
I'm
is
sorry, that is on 492.
Thank you.
Sure. On arrival, the patient presented as above and was promptly evaluated by this provider. VS, Victor Sam, were reviewed, which were reassuring. Exam notable for midline C2, C3 tenderness to palpation. Patient was promptly provided a cervical collar. Obtain CT, head and CT cervical spine, both of which were negative. Given the patient remains with midline cervical spine tenderness, palpation was placed in a PMT, Paul, Mary, Tom, collar. Patient likely suffered a mild concussion. We did discuss signs or symptoms that would warrant immediate return to the emergency department, for which patient verbalized understanding. Patient was provided a concussion protocol for home, in addition to prescription for Zofran for nausea. Patient and patient's father were in agreement with treatment plan, was subsequently discharged home, stable condition with neurosurgical follow-up in 4 to 6 weeks for repeat evaluation of his cervical spine.
All right. I have no further questions for this witness at this time.
Cross-examination?
Detective Sims, as far as the subpoena goes, that was directly to UW Hospital, correct?
Can I look at the document again? It was UW Health. There's just multiple hospitals, UW hospitals and clinics.
And let me ask a better question.
Sure.
No other subpoenas to any other hospitals in Madison were sent out, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any redirect?
No.
Detective, thank you. You may return to your seat.